While you're doing that,
Yes, go.
let me ask Keith, hey, Mr. McMahon, was Pete's email answer enough for you?
It's what? Oh.
Or you want to ask it again tonight?
I don't need to ask him again. It's just that
Okay,
his policies
Just
are
checking.
out of degrees from Ken Spencer. I would like to find out what's in store for this new operating system, Sonoma or Sonora, whatever it is that's coming in the fall. If he has-
Sonoma, or the wine country.
I'd like to discuss it further for the benefit of everybody, if we can. But you know, once we get
I'm
started,
already running it on my extra laptop.
yeah. I'd like to discuss it further for the benefit.
Very well. Any other member announcements or discourse? Very well. Hearing none, I have a question in the chat from Melissa Green. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Let me turn this darn, where is it? I have to turn out this. And they are asking, good. She asked, my third-party lightning cable are not charging iPhone 13 Pro at home and in car. Finally went back to old Apple Lightning and it is working. Anyone else finding charging challenges? That is the question. Any input out there?
These third-party cords, that you pick them up someplace like a Walmart or CVS?
That's a good question. No, these are cords that I've had for quite a few years, actually.
Oh,
Previous
reason
phones, and they have been working, but
okay.
in the last 2 months, they stopped working.
Oh, I would toss them. The reason I was asking was a lot of these cheap cords that you find by the cash register at Walmart, they don't meet Apple standards. So
Okay, I'll toss them.
All righty.
yeah, I would. I mean, the cords aren't all that expensive. So, and I think you said you have working cords.
Is there anything else? Any other questions, issues, statements, declarations? I'm guessing none. I guess I'll do my second comedy act. Hey, Pete.
Hey,
So go on.
well, there was a question from Keith, and I'm not sure now might be a good time to take up that conversation if it's sort of a Q&A, or are we going to do that here soon?
This
Am I
is
jumping the
really,
gun?
this is where we're at right now. You're perfectly timed.
Okay,
How apropos.
great. Well, the topic of upgrading came up again, whether or not it's prudent to upgrade to the new OS, whether it's Mac OS. Now we've got TV OS, we've got Watch OS, we've got iOS, we've got iPad OS. Soon we'll have Vision OS with the Apple Vision Pro. And I want to address that matter. Let's take our time because there's a smaller group. There's a lot to unpack there. But I think this conversation is best served to start with the beginning back then. I don't know, many of you waited in line maybe late at night like I did for versions of Mac OS like OS 10 or Tiger or Snow Leopard. I back in the day, I was the general manager of a CompUSA, I used to have to stay until midnight when the release happened, and I would cordon off certain areas of the store for the crowds who would come to buy the new Apple OS updates. Many of you remember that. Typically, these are around $150. You would pay for these updates, and you would take that disk home and put it in your machine, and it would update your machine. In those days, knowing that's where we came from, I want to clarify why there is lore around upgrade difficulty from that era that's still stuck today. We still discuss it today in terms of how it was then, 20 years ago. Then if you had a problem installing, or if the CD skipped during install, or your Mac couldn't read the disk, or any number or host of problems you may have had installing back then, one thing that's important to note is that era, all of us were fragmented. There was no high-speed internet connection at all of our houses. So the fragmentation was that we all got a disk, went back to our own computers and plugged it in there. And a whole host of different results would come from that. Some people reported back that their computers didn't work anymore because of that update. Something went wrong that maybe Apple didn't anticipate. Some people would complain of peripherals that they had connected to their machine that would no longer function properly. So I want to kind of unpack those things and talk a bit about why that's still a fear for some of you. This question comes up quite often. People will say, oh, I'm still running El Capitan from a few years back because I was told that if I update, there's peril, it's a minefield. The difference between today and then, when all this lore was generated, when all of these legends started to get inked about how no, don't upgrade until everybody else has, and then once everybody else has upgraded and they've worked out all the kinks, then and only then should you consider upgrading. These are the kind of rhetoric and language that I still hear today. I'm here hopefully to debunk it once and for all for the 25 of you. And I would ask you to take some of these talking points and spread them to people who may still use that language from that era 20 years ago. Now, 20 years ago, Apple would release disks into the public, and we would buy them, and then we would start finding out what the problems were. This is true. Especially in the very early days when we went from like System 9 to OS 10, that was very difficult for a lot of reasons. Not only did the entire interface change completely, but everybody's cheese got moved. The folders were in different places. There was a lot to struggle with back then. And many of us have that trauma still, right? We still remember how we were stuck and we couldn't get help. Well, in today's world, I want to describe the process a little bit of how this works now and maybe assuage some of those fears. When Apple is working on and developing updates to their OS, I first want to say that updates to the OS is Apple's #1 priority. That's what they're doing right now. That's what they'll be doing tomorrow. They are evaluating current OS and they are updating it. I think they made a mistake back in the day. Back 20 years ago, I think they made a bit of a mistake. And the mistake was that they would entice you to upgrade with features, right? Remember, dashboard became a feature and widgets became a feature and people lined up. I would talk to the people in line at CompUSA and say, what are you excited about? And they would say, well, I'm excited about widgets. I'll be able to see things on my screen, bits of information, right? These things that were made to entice you to upgrade. What ended up happening is a perception was formed. And that perception was, oh, only upgrade if you need the things that they're talking about that are cool. If you need this dashboard, or if you need these widgets, or if you need this thing that they're sort of advertising for you to upgrade. That I think was a big mistake on their part because it undermined the importance of updating the operating system on your devices. There is very little that is more important than upgrading the operating system on your devices immediately when it's available. Immediately, and here's why. Now, I've been challenged many times. People go, well, come on. The only thing I see that's new in the new update is the ability to put two windows side by side, and I don't need that, so I'm not going to upgrade. It is inconsequential, the cosmetic features that happen during an upgrade. Please don't believe that cosmetic features or new window snapping is somehow the core power of an upgrade of any of Apple's OSs. The reason Apple is the leader and will remain the leader in security and innovation is because they prioritize these updates. Now, back then, they would release plastic discs. We would buy them, put them in our computer, and a host of problems may have occurred. Today, what happens is they release the OS to millions of people before they release it to you. I'm one of those millions. I've signed up for what's called the developer program. And I can get the OS, the beta developer program, I can get the OS early. Anybody can, if they agree to sign up for the early beta program. You go to Apple, you say, I agree, and you can update update your devices early, way earlier than the release date. The reason they do this is because they want that update on millions of devices, so all of those potential kinks can be worked out. That is what today's model looks like. Bob just said a moment ago, he's already got the OS that isn't even out yet on one of his machines. Why? Because Apple wants him using it so he can report back any problems. Now, you might be going, well, what if Bob just doesn't report the problems back? Well, that's not how it works. Apple anonymously takes information from your device, and the diagnostics from that information get put into their system. And that's how they understand where opportunities are or problems are and things like that. So in today's world, to say the lore or rhetoric from the past, in today's world to say, oh no, I'm not going to upgrade until everybody's worked out the kinks and then maybe I'll upgrade. Delete that. Today, they've already worked out the kinks when you get the upgrade. Now, I'm not sitting here claiming that updates are without hiccups. But those hiccups are usually code that needs to be updated. Oh, when I click this button, the window closes unexpectedly. There are going to be things that they'll need to update again. But the important part of these updates isn't the marquee features like, hey, be able to snap windows now. These updates do two very critical things for you, the user. One is these updates optimize your system. If we could stay with that for just a moment, the optimization of your system is very important. If you take a model like Adobe, let's say, Adobe, if you buy Photoshop today, you're buying code that was written in 1981. You're buying code that was written then. And that legacy code is woven throughout Adobe's software even today. So when you buy an Adobe product, you're buying legacy code. And this is why it takes Adobe 90 seconds to launch when you click the icon. This is why when you click certain menus in Adobe Creative Suite, you see a very old looking interface. Adobe and others like them, like Microsoft, don't spend the money or time to optimize the code for your device like Apple does. Why does Apple do this? Because they want your experience to be good. They've proven this to you in 100 different ways. Now, you may have had a bad experience with Apple. That can happen. But no other company that I've seen prioritizes the experience like they do. So when you have companies like Adobe or Microsoft or Intuit, which makes Quicken, right? If you have these companies that just don't care, the profit margin is their business. That's their business model. Profit margin and shareholder reports is what matters to them. But what matters to Apple is your experience. Apple knows that's their discipline. That's the legacy of Steve Jobs. They know that if you have a good experience with their machines, you'll stay. And that's what matters to them the most. So, number one, the code that they release in these OS updates takes the hardware you're using and strips out all the cobwebs in the attic, because that's what Apple's working on as we speak. They're finding those cobwebs, they're finding unnecessary code, outdated code that could compromise you or your system. They're getting it all out, they're making fresh code, and they're putting that in the new update. Now, whether or not you like any of the marquee features that appear in Apple's updates, like snapping or new emojis or whatever the heck it is, doesn't matter. Don't use them if you don't care about them. But what is important is that you update your devices immediately when there's an update. That sounds, what do you call it, draconian or something? But this is a prudent thing, is to update immediately. And I have an asterisk for that I'll get to in a moment. The second thing they're protecting you from is exploits. Exploits, let's call them the bad guys. The bad guys are working almost as hard as Apple is, and they're figuring out ways to exploit you. Now, tech companies have become so good at blocking them out that today's threats mostly are cons. The people just want to trick you. They want you to think your bank account's being robbed, or they want you to think you've won something. There's all kinds of tricks, and I think the bad guys have largely resorted to those tricks. Well, Apple keeps ahead of that. They build warnings into the new OSs. They build sensors in to read into things and say, hey, this might be dangerous. So you have those two things. You have the optimization of your device, and you have your security. Now, I've worked with, let me look here, probably half of you in person. I've sat with half of you next to you in front of your computer. And we've dug into problems together. And it's astounding to me that once I arrive, the upfront description is usually something like, somebody told me not to upgrade, so I haven't. This operating system I'm using is from 3 years ago, 2 years ago, even a year ago. So I haven't upgraded yet. Should I have? My goodness, many of these problems are exasperated by not having the latest operating system. You might be thinking, well, Pete, that's only 9 months old, or that's only a year and a half old. That is an eternity. That is an eternity for your Mac. Not your toaster, not your refrigerator or your air conditioner, but for your Mac, that is an eternity. So many of the problems that I've seen can be fixed by updating. Now, many of you also own many OSs. You own a phone, which has iOS, and you own a watch, which has watchOS, and you own an Apple TV, which has tvOS, and you have a Mac, which has macOS. Now, these versions, I mean, put yourself in Apple's shoes for a minute. If these people are holding these devices, the versions of this software all speak together in a certain language from the era in which they're written. Maybe maybe I'll word it this way. We're not doing the same things with our devices today that we were doing 2 years ago. And the reason is because in this era, people like Apple have discovered all new things that we're capable of doing with our devices. There's all new sensors that they're building in, and all new accelerometers and radios and different things. So when you choose not to upgrade, when you willingly choose not to upgrade, you're foregoing billions of dollars in R&D, first of all, and you're foregoing a company who is looking out for your experience for some rhetoric or lore that you've carried with you into today. Now, I want to get to my asterisk now, and that is that it is very true that there is a risk of hardware not functioning properly after an update. That's very true. But here's something you have to think about the hardware that you choose to connect to your Mac or your iPad or whatever. Hardware that you choose to connect to your Mac is supported by software. Hardware is supported by software. You see that HP printer right there is connected to my Mac, and that connection is supported by software. If the company that makes that printer doesn't keep their software updated, then there will be a collision. It won't work, right? Those two things won't work together. Then I've sat next to many of you, and you've said this Epson printer from 2003 doesn't work anymore. Well, every device becomes obsolete. every device becomes obsolete over time. And companies like this one or Epson or others, they see obsolescence coming, right? They say, hey, this machine has been out in the field for 4 years. This machine doesn't have the physical capabilities to do the things that our new machines can do. We as a company have to make a decision to stop supporting those machines, and we have to move on to what people want today. This is just a big business decision for them. So I see a lot of sour grapes over that. Customers say, if I upgrade to this, then that won't work anymore. But the problem is that's the nature of technology. Obsolescence isn't planned, I don't think. I think it would be, I don't know. I'm no expert, but I don't think obsolescence is planned so much as advancement is planned. Everybody's racing to be the first to do something. Samsung is, Apple is, LG is. These companies are racing to be the first to do something. And I doubt, I mean, I've worked for both HP and Apple, 2 Fortune 50 companies. I've never been in a meeting where people are saying, okay, June 9th, all these machines will stop working. I've sat in meetings where people are going, how do we stay ahead and get further ahead? Well, the way they do that is focusing on developing for today and tomorrow, not yesterday. So everything's going to become obsolete over time, and it is your duty. There's people who hate when I say that, but it is your duty as somebody who wants to stay abreast of their technology to stay ahead of that obsolescence. Or you can say, I don't really care if it works right. I just like having a computer. Those are really your 2 choices. You have a duty to maintain and stay ahead of the obsolescence, or you can say, I just want to own a computer, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So my strong advice to all of you is, in today's world, with the way Apple is delivering these updates directly to your device, turn everything on automatic. Now, I'll go head to head with any of you to take a look at how many devices are connected to your device at any one time. Just looking at the desk in front of me, if you'd like me to start holding up pieces of hardware that are in front of me, let's see if I can just get them all in my hand at one time even. Let's see, I don't even think that's possible, but here, let me get that. And this one has a wire on it. I'll get that. These things are all connected to my computer. I'm not done, but I don't think I can hold anymore. Okay, this is my current stack of devices, all connected to my computer. And it is up to me to keep these things running properly by applying the updates that Apple has worked so hard to put out there, or the manufacturers of this hardware. I'm somebody with at least 13 devices just in my arm's reach, let alone the others that I can't reach right now, don't have hiccups with these devices because I've been aware of what it takes to maintain them. I've been aware of what obsolescence looks like. So for the question of should I update when an update comes out, the answer from me is always going to be a very enthusiastic yes. Because the 20 years ago days of everything shutting down when we update, that's over now. It's over. There's no more disks to put in and failure of the disk or disconnected machines. Everything's connected. Apple can see and hear all the machines, and they know which ones are updated and which ones aren't. And they know what percentage of people have updated their machines. It's a very different world. I welcome any of your arguments against my guidance, and I'm always happy to discuss. I do see those hands, and I'll get to those in a moment, but I'm always happy to discuss this with you. And I respect your viewpoints and even your experiences and expertise that you bring. I'm living proof that for 20 years, I haven't missed an update on day one. And I've had so few hiccups, except in the days when we were all alone in our offices with our CDs not connected to the internet. But yes, I do see your hand, Bev. And so if you'd like to, yeah.
I'm unmuted. My question is, I have certain things that update automatically, but I was under the impression I had to have all my tabs closed when I updated, and I invariably have a number in the, if not, in the whatever the bar or whatever it's called. So is it accurate that you need to close those out to have a update occur? Or just
Interesting. Interesting. You lead us to a fragment of this discussion, but you're talking. I assume when you say tabs, you're talking about your web browser, right? You keep a
Yes,
lot.
and I am guilty of using Chrome more than Safari just because I'm not used to Safari.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I can have 15 up there in the bar.
Yes. Well, if I could address that, I would say that trying to keep those tabs open persistently and having a fear that they might close, I would recommend then to you in a situation like that you create a tab group in Chrome where all those tabs live, and you can open them all again with one click by using your tab group. And that way, when you close down Chrome or you restart your Mac, you're not worried about all those tabs disappearing and how am I going to get them all back. You just click your tab group and they all reappear at the top of your browser.
Which is a brief explanation of how to create a tab group?
Maybe. Yeah, yes, it is. Here, let me launch Chrome here. I'll launch Chrome and I'll even share my screen here. Let me see.
Or you make them part of your favorites so that they're always there.
Yeah, take a look.
I underutilize a lot of that, and I do a lot of extensive workarounds. I have discovered and found out how to, when I inadvertently close, I have found the tab to restore them.
Yeah, let me show you. This will be simple. Here I am in Chrome. For Chrome users, you recognize this. I've got my Chrome bar here, my bookmarks bar. I've got my address bar here, but I can right click on this bar, or I just right click here and I can add a folder to my bar. So if I add a folder here, we're going to call it MacNexus. There, I just added the MacNexus folder to my bar, and I'm just going to drag it to the very front so we can see it. There it is, MacNexus. There's nothing in it right now. And so I'm going to go to macdailynews.com. Right, and I'm going to drag that into this new group I made called MacNexus. You see that? And then I'm going to open another tab, and that's going to be 9to5mac.com. These will be all my geek sites. I'm going to drag that one in there too, and let's just do a little preview there. Aha, they're both in that folder. Great. And now I'm going to go to macnexus.com. Let's get that in there. Here we go. I'm going to drag that in there. And I'm building out this thing here. I've got all these tabs open that we've been talking about so far. I'm going to go to gizmodo.com. Let's get that in there. Okay, so you see we're just populating this folder basically with all of the sites. And Bev, I think you just said you have a lot of tabs open. So what you would do is you would put them all in this folder. Now, if I shut my Chrome down, I'm going, I just closed the 27 tabs that I like to have open, darn it. Well, let me share again as I relaunch Chrome here from my, and if I take my MacNexus folder that I just created and right click it, I can say open all 4 or all 27 or all 71 or all 200. And look, they all just pop right back open and I can go right through and see them all right here. So this tab group is what saves you from the trepidation of upgrading because you may lose your tabs. You close it down. And by the way, you ought to be rebooting your Mac daily or at least weekly, because rebooting your Mac does a lot to it. It isn't just a reboot.
Reboot, are you doing more than just turning it off, closing it and opening, or one of those more fancy reboots?
Great clarification there. Closing it is sleep. That's just sleep. It's still on. The screen's just off, but it's still on. And the hard drive may spin down. So that's sleep. A reboot allows the kernel of Unix and Mac OS to recompile all the necessary code. So it's not magic, but it's a reorganization of the code and everything reboots. Radio connections are diagnosed during a reboot. Folder hierarchies are cleaned up. Loose files are stored where they need to be. Your hard drive is somewhat optimized with OS 10 or Mac OS. So reboot is important. And many of you who I've sat next to, I've said, oh, it's acting up, is it? Well, how long has it been since you've restarted the machine? And sometimes the answer is 2 weeks or a month. And it's like, well, there we go. There are things like memory leaks and weird things that happen with software that has to be reset often. So if you're not rebooting your Mac daily or at least weekly, I highly recommend doing that. So all those different
The
things.
next question is how to reboot. I know how to do it on the phone.
Yes. In the upper left corner, you have the Apple menu up there. And if you pull down that Apple menu, you'll see choices like sleep and restart. And shut down. Sleep, restart, and shut down. Shut down is when you want to turn it off completely and leave it off, but restart is what does all that stuff. Rechecks all the radio connections, rechecks all the folder hierarchies, rechecks this, that, and the other, and makes it so everything is clean and fresh for you. No memory leaks in the software, no legacy connections that happen to disconnected when they're supposed to, all that stuff.
Well, that's simple.
Yeah. I have mine do it automatically. There's a setting where you can say every night at 2 a.m. reboot. And then when I wake up in the morning, it's rebooted.
Restart equals reboot.
Restart equals reboot. Yeah, sorry. Interchangeable terminology, kind of. But yeah, there's a such thing as a hard reboot when your Mac's frozen. Nothing will work. You're pushing all the buttons and keyboard feels like you want to just unplug it. That's a hard reboot where you have to do a button sequence in some cases to get it to shut down and come back up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully I have addressed, if not assuaged, some of the fears that people have about updating in today's world. And again, I'm happy to open this up to questions or challenges or experiences. Barbara, I see you have your hand up there. So
actually, Bev's question reminded me of something on my MacBook Pro, which is not quite a year old. I often can't get my mail app to close and to quit. And I don't know what's going on, but sometimes I've had to just, shut down the Mac because it's the only thing I can do. In fact, one time I tried to shut down the Mac and it wouldn't let me shut it down because mail wasn't closed and I couldn't get mail to quit. So
next to the space bar, to the left of the space bar, are two buttons. One is the Apple, one is Command. It looks like a clover leaf.
Right.
And then there's one next to that. If you're on your Mac right now, or if anybody's on their Mac right now, if you hold those two buttons and then with your other hand hit escape, a menu will pop up saying, would you like to force quit this application? And you can say, yes, I want to force quit this thing.
And what else besides escape?
I'll make it really easy to remember. The two buttons next to the space bar, whatever they are.
Control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Hold those two and then with your other hand hit escape.
Okay.
That window pops up and now you have the option to force quit the application and that will get it out of your way so you can carry on and do what you wanted to do.
And why would the mail application not quit? I haven't had trouble with any other of the applications, although usually that's mostly Safari, but if only mail.
First question I like to ask is are you updated to the very latest version?
Yep.
In that case, I've seen this has happened to me where apps just are stubborn. Sometimes I click mail to launch it and it doesn't launch. And sometimes I click quit to close it and it doesn't close. If you Google it, Apple's mail application has drawn a lot of fire over the decades. People are mad at it because of these small quirks, but hopefully they're the exception and not the rule. But yeah, I don't know. I hate to say this, but I stopped using the Mac Mail app for the reasons we just described. It was just too quirky for me. There was a lot of quirks like that. Some people really love it. It's part of their workflow. I don't begrudge that at all. Apple did a great job with most of it, but those quirks really are tough for me sometimes. So I moved on to a different client.
So if I have trouble getting it to quit, then I should just reboot the whole computer.
I suggest that either nightly or at least weekly, rebooting the whole computer. Yeah. Think about it. All the radios get checked and then reset, and then all the folder hierarchies and the hard drive fragmentation. There's just so many things that happen during that time that I do recommend it. Yeah.
And that would be the same thing if I've done that, but I still can't get the mail app to quit. Just shut it down and.
Yeah. Do that force quit move to get your mail out of your way, and then you can do the reboot.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Happy to help.
Keith has his hand up.
Yeah. Hey, Keith.
So I started this whole conversation by an email about a week ago. Upgrading. So I
You
want.
caught me at the right time, Keith. I was ready for you. I took some time and wrote that out. I was ready.
So I wanted to elaborate on what I'm doing and why. I've had Apple computers for probably 35 years. And I like Apple computers, but many years ago, I used a system for keeping track of my finances and checkbooks and stuff like this on Quicken. And Quicken decided they didn't want to make their software available for Macs anymore. They wanted to stay strictly with Windows. So then I switched to a company called iBank or Banktivity that has a very similar program, but only for Apple products. And I've been using that for at least the last 10 years. I have an older version of it that I paid for. And I was curious to know if I upgraded my Monterey OS system to Ventura, would this Banktivity application still work? And after a long time trying to get in touch with somebody in their customer service, which was not easy, what I was told was the system I have, the Banktivity application that I currently have, they won't guarantee it'll work with Ventura. So I said, well, I don't want to upgrade because of this. They want me to upgrade to a new version of their product.
Yeah, let me insert something. Keith, let me insert something here before you go any further. I just want to say at this point in the conversation, you've been tricked by a business. You've been tricked.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
What do you mean by trick? What was the trick?
Once they got your money, they decided they weren't going to update the software. They tricked you. Yeah.
So if I go to their current version of their software to make sure it works,
I'm sure it's paid. I'm sure you have to pay for it. Yes.
Then they want a subscription service and pay whatever the hell it is, $20 a year or $50 a year. I don't know what it is, but
yeah, you're tricked.
Right now, I don't want any more subscription services.
You know what I do in my life? I throw those companies in the garbage can. You can trick me once and that's it. And then I'm gone. There's so many competitors out there and I know it's a hassle to move, but for me, that's what I do. I won't be tricked by a business.
So what do you recommend for financial services, keeping track of checks and cash accounts? If Quicken doesn't do it and this Banktivity doesn't do it, what works for Apple products?
That's a complex matter. That's a very complex matter for everybody. People have different needs. For me, I have one checking account. So for me, it's very small matter, but some people have a lot of investments and different things that they need to track. That is something you need to research and figure out what is right for you, and read reviews to look at users who have used the software. Reddit is your friend. Search Reddit as you're researching banking software. You can even contact users and say, hey, I saw your post on Reddit and I'm curious about this. This is something, this is your money. You're putting your money, a business has their hands out and they want you to put your money in it. I would do a lot of research and find out the one that's best for you.
Okay.
But yeah, businesses will trick you. Anybody got Mac software cleaner on their Mac, or cleanup, or Mac cleanup, disk optimizer?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, these are all businesses that will trick you. What do they want? They want your money, and they're not afraid to trick you for it.
Can I insert a piece of information here?
Sure, please.
When we used to have triage, probably half of the hours in triage were spent by Bob Studer or Kimberly Coy cleaning up the messes that those programs made.
Mm.
That's why I won't touch any of them with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, to me, that's the worst form of a virus, is when you get tricked and you spend your money and then they say, we got your money and we don't care what happens next. Yeah, that's a tough one, but it happens in every industry, automobiles, and there's hucksters out there who are going to make you look the other way and then take off with your money. But yeah, that's what happened there.
Don has his hand up.
Oh, Don, hey, come on.
Yeah, when you mentioned radios, besides Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, what were you talking about as a radio?
Yeah, I'm using radio as sort of a generic term, but like your iPad has an accelerometer in it. My watch has a depth sensor and a barometer. I mean, all these different sensors and hardware devices that are built in that have a reliance on software, right? The accelerometer in your phone, which senses when you move it around, has to talk to the software constantly. And sometimes they get out of sync. So when you reboot, they sync back up. And now everything's working perfectly again. So yeah, there's NFC radio, right? NFC is what they use to identify you for Apple Pay and this sort of thing. There's a secure enclave on your devices that keeps your information in there, that has to every so often hear from the software again to sync back up with all the things you're doing. I just think, it resets everything. Whatever device you're using, whatever sensors or radios are in there, it resets all of its software connection with all those things and says, hey, you still here? Yep. You still working right? Yep. Okay. You're in sync with us? Yep. Okay. Hey, we're back. Because sometimes these things get out of sync. These devices are very complex. And sometimes these things get out of sync. And so rebooting, and look, the phone, gosh, I don't think we reboot this thing, but every month or two, maybe, right? It just goes to sleep. Look, it's on now, and I click the sleep button and it's off. It's not off, it's just sleeping. It's still on because look, I click it again and it's back. Turning it off is tough. Apple made it kind of hard to turn these devices off, or to hard reboot them. These are things that they don't want to tell you. Like if Apple said, hey, everybody, we think you should reboot your product once a week, then Samsung's going to run an ad that says, hey, everybody, look at Apple. They think you should reboot your product once a week. Ha ha, come buy ours. Why? Because that's an opportunity for them to trick you. So reboot once a day if you can, once a week if you can't. Don't go more than a week without rebooting your Mac. And then these mobile devices like iPads and iPhones, they go a way longer time. And let me just give a brief explanation why. Mac OS and its software partners are still running an open system that software developers can write for. iOS for your mobile devices, both phone and iPad OS, is a closed system. That is a sandbox that Apple runs very strictly. And every piece of software that you download on that device goes through rigorous testing at Apple's facilities, and they reject most software. They say, nope, we've found flaws, you're out of here. These devices run for a long time for that very reason. Now they're working hard to get to a place where they can close Mac OS as well and make it as robust and strong. This is why all these M chips are coming out, the M1, the M2 chip. These are going to help Apple close these systems down even further to make it so they run longer without having to reboot. But if you have a Mac that has a drive in it, you got to reboot that thing. Ooh, that was fun. That was a roller coaster. Anybody else? You want to share your experience or add anything to that conversation?
Oh, Pete, Bev here. When you say a drive in it, it doesn't matter whether it's a hard spinning drive or the solid state.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether it's an SSD, solid state drive, or an HDD, hard disk drive, which is on a spindle with moving parts. Either of those should be rebooted, just like any other device that relies on software to connect. It has to renegotiate the connection every so often. And SSDs are much more reliable because there's no moving parts. But HDDs, or old spindle drives, have a lot of things that they have to diagnose every time you reboot. It has to shut down. It has to look at block sectors on the disk and fragmentation and all this stuff. So we've come from a lot more of it in the past, and there's a lot less of it today. And tomorrow there'll be even less. But as it stands today, if you have a Mac, you should reboot often. Now, if you have an M1 or an M2 chip in your Mac, you can go even longer without rebooting because Apple is really closing in on that closed system where they don't have to worry about these types of things anymore.
Pete, how do you reboot the iPhone and the iPad?
Charles, I thought you were going to say, Pete, tell us how you really feel about this matter. But yes, let me show you this. And if you've got a pen next to you, you might want to write this down. It's not difficult, but it's hard to remember because it is a very specific sequence of buttons that you have to push to reboot either an iPhone or an iPad, and I'll grab my iPad here too. Whether it's an iPad or an iPhone, I'm going to show this to you on screen because I want you to look at the ridiculously long time it takes to do this, or not ridiculously, but people always let go of the buttons way before they should. So here's mine. And what I'm going to do with this device here, on this side here are my volume up and down buttons, right? Go ahead and find yours, your volume up and down. And on this side here is only one button. That's the sleep wake button, they call it. One button here, two buttons here. Now, if you have an iPhone SE or if you have another model, it's possible that you don't have that configuration with two on one side and one on the other. In fact, some of you still have a home button here, which is a whole different story. But for those of you who have no home button and you have two on one side, your volume rocker, and your sleep button on this side, this is how it's done. Ready? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up, down, and then hold. So, right? So that's volume up, volume down, and then hold. Don't do it yet. Let me do it before you, and then you follow. Right? So I'm going to go up, down, hold. So here we go. Volume up, volume down, hold, and look what happens. Now my finger has not come off that button. I'm squeezing it tight. I'm squeezing it tight. I will not let go. Watch what's going to happen. That screen is going to go black. There it is. It's black. An Apple logo will appear on my screen. Watch. There it is. I'm not letting go of that button. I'm still holding it very tightly. That Apple logo has just disappeared. When the second Apple logo comes, I can now let go. This has not only rebooted your device, but that's called, I don't know what they call it anymore, but that's a hard reboot. The way we just did it, that really clears out. It's like zapping the PRAM. Remember, we all used to have to zap the PRAM, hold down the P in our button. Remember that voodoo? Well, this is basically the same thing as that. I'm going to do it again on my iPad just to show you another version.
Pete,
Go ahead.
you don't have to wait for the second Apple anymore.
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure, you know. Here we go again. Up, down, sleep wake button, same thing, right? I get this slide to unlock, but I'm not going to. I'm still holding. My finger is pressed very tightly against that button there. Still holding. I will not slide to unlock. And now I've got an Apple logo coming. Where is it? There it is. I'm not letting go. My finger is still tightly pressed on that button. I'm waiting for that second Apple logo. There it is. And now I can release. And now I've just force rebooted my device. And I've forced all those radios to reconnect with the operating system. I've forced all those sensors, all those drives. Everything is talking to each other again after I bullied it like that. Then I unlock and I'm right back into my OS, and it may be my imagination, but after I do that, I feel like things are a bit snappier. I feel like things move a bit quicker, at least for a few days. So if you were writing it down, it is tap, volume up, tap, volume down, hold, sleep wake button on the other side. Hold it. How long do you hold it? A long time. My sister, I was on the phone with her for so long, she goes, it's not working. I said, well, you're holding the button? She said, yeah, I'm holding it. It's not working. I'm like, how long are you holding the button? She's like, I'm holding it. Turns out she was letting go of the darn button too early. I was like, no, hold it for a long time. This, you know, so you're going to hold that button longer than you think. And it's kind of hard to press in. And my finger starts trembling after a while because I'm pressing that darn thing in. But that's how you reboot it. And that will clear up usually connection issues and apps that won't launch anymore, or apps that quit when you launch them. This seems to clear up 90% of that stuff.
And if you do have an SE?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm going to have to look that up because there is a sequence where you hold the home button, which is that front round button, and I think the sleep wake button at the same time, I think is what it is. It's been a long time since I've had a home button, but I think it is those.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. I think you hold the one on the front, which is called the home button, and the sleep wake, the single one, not the volume rocker, but the single one. You hold those both at the same time, and the same process should take place.
Right.
I had to reboot my wife's SC the other day.
Oh, yes.
To look it up.
Oh,
Just
okay.
like,
Hey,
So-
Al, I think Al just dropped in. Hello.
Here's my SE. There's a button on top. That's the sleep wake button.
Aha, there you go.
I
Yeah.
hold it, if I hold it down, I get the thing where I can slide my finger and then it'll shut the
no.
phone off.
Hold the home button and at the same time. Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
shutting it off is different than rebooting it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Shutting it down. So yeah, good point. When you hold it, it says slide to power off, and then you do that, and then it's off. And then turning it back on will power it back up. And I think that does most of it. I think that's very similar to what I showed. I wait for that second cycle because it really just keeps, I don't know, it like resets it and then resets it again. And like, to me, I feel better when it's reset twice. And I have had better results. I don't know how to prove that. And I even had friends, Al, as a matter of fact, remember the time you had a new Apple Watch and it wasn't powering on, and we did that sequence. We held those buttons down for a long time, longer than we thought we should. You know, I think I remember you saying I tried that, and I was like, no, hold them down for a very, very long time. And you're like, okay, I'll try. And then sure enough, it popped up. So yeah. Okay, great. That was a great discussion. I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk about that stuff. And please, if you have questions, if you're hesitant, don't be. Come on, let's talk about it. Even if you want to challenge this guidance, I'm happy to hear your experiences and stuff. So, very nice. Okay.
There was, I mean, back when we were going for Mojave, was it then Catalina and then Big Sur? I mean, seemed like in the club, there were some individuals that were very unhappy with Catalina and almost advised just skipping it and waiting until Big Sur.
Yeah. Interesting. I'd like to know, look, there are quirks sometimes. Like, I don't like Catalina because, the Finder has smaller buttons and I've heard many things. Very few of them have to do with catastrophe within the software and the hardware. Most of it is third-party software where you've been tricked by a business who refuses to update, or third-party hardware which relies on software to talk to your machine. Those things can happen sometimes, of course, but that is most likely because that device is becoming obsolete, or the company who created that device has chosen not to support it anymore. So in some cases, we've seen that that's a real thing, but this is why I feel it's incumbent upon us as the user, as the owner of the devices, to do our research and make sure we don't do business with companies who would trick us.
Thank you.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you. And it's 10:55. I'm not sure, Thomas, if there was some part of the succession that I interrupted here that we have to get back to or something. And you might be.
Yeah, I was muted. No. You are the show tonight. If you needed a break or something, I mean, I'm not sure. We're at your leisure and the will of the people.
Excellent.
Will of the people.
Love your voice, Tom. I'm happy to take questions or whatever you'd like for a couple minutes, or we can just dive right into tonight's topic. Either one.
What say ye? Anyone need a break, or you could just step away? I would imagine. It's your choice, Pete. Really. It's looking like I don't see any angry eyes, so we're likely doing okay.
Yeah, it's rare that I'm halfway through and there's no angry eyes. So good.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
This is Don. I have a question on an iPhone.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Bugged me recently when I'm typing in in a search in Safari. Sometimes I want to correct it. Now I can move my finger and type where I want to make the correction, and it puts it there. Other time it selects a whole phrase. Yeah, and I can't figure out why. It seems to know which way I want it, does it the opposite.
Yes. What I've grown accustomed to doing, and it was a little bit of a stretch for me. This wasn't intuitive for me, but here I offer you this path. The next time you want to get your cursor somewhere, and it's so hard to get it exactly where you want it. If you hold the space bar, it turns into a trackpad and you can move your cursor wherever you'd like. So I'm just going to open Safari right now. I'm going to start. I'm now in the address bar as if I was typing a URL. I'm going to hold the space bar down and move back and forth, and I can move my little I-beam cursor wherever I like, just simply by holding the space bar down in the keyboard. That to me has been a much better way to position the I-bar text insertion cursor where I want it than trying to tap it. So try that, because I agree that it can be frustrating to try to get that thing exactly where you want it. And it selects whole words, like you said. Just today I was going, why is it selecting this entire word? I just want to insert the thing there. So yeah, that is something that can be quirky.
Yeah, I've got that trick to work sometimes, but it doesn't be consistent. And maybe it depends on what browser I'm using.
I agree with you. Yeah, there have been times where I'm like, hey, how come I'm not getting my trackpad? But that's my go-to now. Yeah, you like that. Okay. Well, no hands, and I'm happy to jump into our topic for tonight, which is Affinity, Affinity Designer. No, Affinity Bundle. And somebody posted, Ray, thank you for posting in the chat that Affinity is having a sale. I think this whole bundle is 25% off. And I'll share, I've got the website pulled up here. I might as well share that with you. And so we can just take a quick look at what we're talking about tonight from their perspective here. Let me share that. And Serif is the name of the company. Serif is a company based in the United Kingdom, and they have a product called Affinity. And Affinity is a suite of applications, just like we're used to with other companies, like Adobe has their Creative Suite, and Microsoft has their Productivity Suite with Office, and Apple has their Productivity Suite with what we used to call iWork, but which is now just Keynote pages and numbers. So yeah, this is a suite by a company called Serif. The suite is called Affinity. And there are three applications in the suite. They mirror Adobe's Creative Suite applications. So Designer would be Affinity's, Serif's answer to Illustrator. And Affinity Photo would be Serif's answer to Photoshop, and Publisher would be Serif's answer to Adobe InDesign. Those are the three pieces of software that you will get if you were to purchase the bundle. Now I'm going to scroll down here and go to the pricing. Now, $123.99 is one lifetime payment to Serif for the Affinity bundle, $123.99. Not only could I not give them my money fast enough, but I found myself asking myself, how can I continue to support this company and their movement? And I was able to purchase these books, which are published. These are just gorgeous books. They're published by Serif. And it is 3 books on the Affinity bundle. There is the book on Affinity Photo, the book on Affinity Publisher, and the book on Affinity Designer. I've got to just show you, this book weighs, I mean, this reminds me of my math textbook from high school. It's a nice hardcover book, and inside are absolutely glorious tutorials on how to use this software. Step by step, what all the tools do. I mean, many of us say, darn it, things don't come with a manual anymore. Well, it didn't come with this manual. I had to purchase these, but I gleefully hit the buy now button because I want to support this type of literature and this type of company. A company that is offering me a $123 purchase. Now, gosh, I should have said this up front. I make zero money off of anything I talk about. I don't make any money off of anything I talk about. I'm not affiliated with anybody. there's too much mines on that minefield. So I do not generate income from any of the things I suggest to you. So I want to get that out of the way up front, is that all of my enthusiasm and passion that you hear is from way inside here. Nobody told me to say this. Nobody paid me to say this. This is the kind of company I want to do business with. For $123, they're going to give you those 3 applications, not the books. The books cost me something like $50 each. The books were more than the software, and I proudly bought them. Amazing, incredible books. And the people who wrote these books took a lot of time and energy to do it. 3 of them, I can't even lift all 3 at the same time. Just amazing. I keep them right next to me on my desk. And if I have time on a Sunday afternoon, I flip one open and we go through those books. Incredible. The 3 applications, designer, photo, and publisher, are steadfast opponents to Adobe's Creative Suite. Now, let's talk industry standards. Adobe is the industry standard. If you're a professional with aspirations to get into a graphic design house or a publishing house, or you want to be a photographer, you are going to find way more people using the industry standard, which is Adobe's Creative Suite. They became the industry standard from lack of choice. That's how they became the industry standard, just like Microsoft. There's a lack of choice. This is how they gain their foothold. And they've been tricked. If you're a customer of Adobe and your company's not paying for it, but you are personally, you've been tricked by a business. Adobe's tricked you. Their software is, I used to say bloated pig, but that's so colorful. I don't like that kind of language, but it's horrible. The software is horrible. Why? Because they haven't changed some of the code in that software since 1981. Affinity has designed their applications for today's world. They're designed to work with your M1 chip or your M2 chip. They're designed to be blazing fast. And when you pay that $123 for the software suite, you get it on your Mac, you get it on your iPad. If you have a PC, you can put it on that too. So they're priced fairly. That's how the model should be. Now let me say the quiet part out loud. I am still an Adobe subscriber because I work for HP. And that's a Fortune 50 company who's never heard of Serif or Affinity. And so in order to interface with some of the HP's big production houses, I've got to give them files in the types that they want. Affinity will export files into those Adobe formats. But to me, there's some risk in the professional world that it won't translate 100% the way I need it to. So being, somebody who's used the Adobe Creative Suite now for over 2 decades, I know that very well. But it is like a drink of cool water in hell. That's what Steve Jobs said, right? Yeah, he said, it would be. If iTunes was on the PC, it would be like a drink of cold water in hell. That's a Steve Jobs quote. But it was like a cool drink of water when I opened Affinity for the first time. The first reason why is because it opened instantly. I clicked the button and it was open. Those of you who are still using Adobe, let's say Photoshop, you maybe launch it and then wait a bit, maybe go get some coffee, or not. If you have an M1 or an M2 chip, they're blazing fast. So we're going to dig into the 3 pieces of software here and some reasons why you might need them or why you'd want to use them. I'm going to go back to their website just for a brief moment because I'm curious to know what would happen if you just wanted one of the 3. So the 3 of them right now is $123. And it's a universal license. But if I just wanted designer and I clicked buy now, how much is that? I'm curious. Oh, look at that, $52 if you just want the one. And that is an ongoing license. And once you get, oh, I see. This is interesting. I didn't know it was broken down like this, but if you're following along with me here, when you buy all three of them for $123.99, it is a universal license, meaning you can install it on any operating system you want, Mac OS, Windows, or iPad OS. When you buy the individual pieces of software, then you're buying that version of Mac OS, Windows, or iPad. So an advantage there, I think, to buying the bundle. But this is interesting. The iPad version of Affinity Designer is only $13.99. Folks, I have submitted projects for HP that you've probably seen in stores that were done on my iPad with Affinity Designer. Is this being recorded? Okay. Just kidding. No, I have done that because it is gorgeous on the iPad. It runs like a hot knife through butter, and the capabilities are staggering. There's been very few things. I've been sitting on a plane with my iPad. There have been very few things that I wished I could do that I couldn't. Because Adobe has a feature that this does. Very few, if any. I've found a way to work around all of it. So I'll pause there and let's talk about that part, and then we'll dive into the software and take a look at some of the reasons why you might want to own one of these three pieces of software. If there are any questions. If not, I'll just dive right in. Okay, I don't see any hands. Let me check the chat. Zoom, Affinity how-to. Yes, some good stuff. Oh, Al is back.
Yeah, he's back. He's
Al
on
is
it.
back.
Yeah. The Link
Thank you.
Master's in the house.
Yes.
No questions though.
Tom, did you make Al a co-host?
He sure is, I believe, didn't I, Al? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he's co-host.
Good.
I'm in.
Okay, well, I have one of those pieces of software open here. I happen to have Affinity Designer open, and I thought I would start there. Let's take a quick tour through Affinity Designer. Then we'll take a quick tour through Affinity Photo, and then a very fast, brief overview of Publisher, which is the least commonly used one in my travels. But there might be some of you going, I want that one. That's the one I like. I use Adobe InDesign right now, and I'd really like to get rid of it. So we'll definitely do an overview of that one. Affinity is a vector-based program. Well, I mean, I'm not going to assume everybody knows what even Adobe Illustrator is. So let me just take a moment to sort of explain why you might want a vector-based program like Affinity Designer here. Vector and bitmap are the two types of things you will see when you look at an image. There are two types of images, vector and bitmap. Essentially, every image can be broken down. Every image can be tied back to that type of format. Every image has to be either a vector or a bitmap. And the difference between the two is that a bitmap is much like Legos. For those of you who have ever played with Legos, you're taking physical bricks and you're snapping them together, and you are limited by the number of bricks you have, or you're limited by the shape of your bricks. There are some limitations to Legos. You can't make a perfect circle with a handful of block Legos. There will be jagged edges in your circle because Legos aren't curved, or they didn't used to be, but now there's curved ones. And that's bitmap. Bitmap is actual pixels. Bitmap reminds me of no, I'll get to that in a moment. So you have bitmap, which is actual destructive type of editing. And then you have vector, and vector is a mathematical equation. Vector is the software listening to you in the same way it would if you were doing a bitmap. It listens to you in the same way, but what it's doing under the hood is it's making mathematical equations of what you're telling it to do. Instead of the Lego bricks, now it's vectors and fill colors and things that can be manipulated mathematically. I'll just give you a brief example here. I have this image of a guitar, and on the right, I have a bitmap version, and on the left, I have a vector version of this guitar. And they don't look much different to me at all. In fact, they are the identical image, really. However, there are some differences that I think we should explore. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to look at the vector version. Now, here we have a little string winder thing here, and I'm going to zoom in on it really close. I'm going to keep zooming in on the circle in the middle of that guitar winder. Now that circle has filled my screen, and I don't see a single 90-degree angle. I see all curves. And I'm going to zoom back out, and let's do the same thing to the bitmap image. So we were just right here in the vector image, and now let's zoom in to the bitmap image. And we're going to make that same circle fill my screen. What happened? Where's my circle? Well, because this image is a bitmap image, it is made up of physical pixels that can only be a certain size. Pixels can only be a certain size. That's reliant on your resolution. However, with vector, and here, let me zoom out a little bit and just move right over to the vector side. Let's see. In fact, let me make that closer. I'm gonna take that thing and I'm gonna move it right over here. And I'm going to send that to the back. Let's put those two side by side. Let's zoom in a little bit. As you can see, no matter how large I make this image, the vector keeps telling me, give me all you got. How big do you want me to go? I'll go as large as you like. The bitmap, however, is struggling because it's made up of physical pixels. Has anybody ever taken a clump of silly putty and put it on a newspaper and then seen the impression in the silly putty? And then you try to make it larger, but that thing just gets distorted. Well, that's because you're limited by what the silly putty can hold, which is the ink from the paper. This guy on the left, this is all mathematical equations. This is all made up of nodes that mathematically connect to each other. And then a fill color is assigned to those nodes. All of that smart calculation is going on behind the scenes. I don't see it. I don't know where all that code is. But on the right, no calculations are going on. The right is what they call dumb, and the left is what they call smart, right? The right can't respond to my zooming, but the left can. Disclaimer, that was not political. Okay, and then let's go down here. Look, the differences. So the reason that happens is because this is vector-based art here that we're seeing. Now this bitmap image, if I were to move it over here, you see that it's locked into its canvas. It has a white frame around it. Why? Because it's limited by pixels. And those white pixels are what's holding this thing in place. Now, how about this one? Let's grab this one and move it over. Oh, look at this. This one isn't made by pixels, it's made by mathematics. So it does not need to be held in place. Now, what about this red guitar? I want to change that maybe to blue. Well, let me go over here and click some buttons, and we can change this color to some nice hues of blue. And let's see some of that in there. Go over here and change some of these. And I have full control over this artwork at the pixel level. I can even move some of these things around. If I don't like the way this button is placed, I can move that button off of it. Whereas this, there is nothing I can do with this image at all. And at any size, this is crystal clear at any size because it's being mathematically updated every time you zoom or any change you make. So this is the advantage to vector-based software and vector-based workflows, is that you can create or go find assets that are vector. Now, you might be thinking, and you'd be right to think this, Pete, who has time to design a guitar from the ground up so it's supported by Vector? Well, there are plenty of ways to get stuff from the internet. I'm just going to go to Shutterstock right now. I happen to have a subscription there, but notice that in search engines like this, I can filter by vector, and I can say something like, I don't know, US flag. If we look at this image here, if I were to download that image, let me see, click my download button. It's going to be down here. I'm going to open that now with Affinity Designer. Here it comes. And let's zoom in on one of those stars. Ooh, I see nothing but sharp edges, no matter how far I zoom. And if I would like to change any of this, I can get into the composition here and make changes to the colors if I wanted. So this vector-based workflow allows me the freedom to be able to take art like this and do very cool things with it. Another very cool thing about this is I have an asset window here, which will allow me to take any of these items that I have created or acquired from the internet, and I can add it to my assets, right? So I can say add from selection. And what that's done now is taken this asset here and put it in my asset browser. So, oh wait, here, let me just do this. So I'm going to say add by selection. So now we have that added into the asset browser. Now, if I'm in a whole different file, I'm just going to go to a whole nother file. Here we are back at our guitars here. And I'm going to go down here and through all my assets. Hey, there's that flag in my asset browser. I'm going to drag that flag out and use it in my composition here. I'll put it right over here. And look, it's transparent background. This is a vector-based workflow. So this is what you get with Affinity Designer, which is available on the iPad. Now, I was mentioning earlier working for HP, and I have a lot of assets that I use frequently that are related to HP. They're all sitting in my little asset browser there. I can drag an HP logo out at any time, make it whatever size I want it to be, and there will be no loss of fidelity or resolution in that logo. This is all supported by a vector-based workflow.
Hey, Pete,
Yes.
that asset browser, do those assets have to be stored on your main system drive, or can they be stored on an external drive somewhere?
Yeah, great. Al, you and I think a lot of, like, that was my first thought is, does that thing sync? Because if that thing syncs across all my devices, I'm golden. It doesn't sync automatically yet. Affinity has said that's in their workflow and they do want that thing to sync. But for now, you can export the file and import it to another. I can export all these assets here, and then they can be imported on my other machines. So it's a little bit manual. It's not.
So do you just have them reside on an external drive somewhere and just access
Sure.
them that way for whatever machine you're using?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I should have a folder on like my Dropbox where I just export that file every so often and then re-import it to my other devices. That's a good idea. But yeah, that I like it. So that's our vector-based workflow, and that is all supported by Affinity Designer. Just a remarkable piece of software. For those who want to learn the vector-based workflow, here is the book that supports Affinity Designer. Let me stop sharing so I get a little bigger picture here, and maybe I'll spotlight myself. Is that a thing? Yeah. I just kind of want to show a little bit about just sort of the step-by-step and thorough nature of the way this book breaks down the software, and just having it on your desk. It's been really a remarkable experience learning this way. I know there's plenty of YouTube tutorials and stuff, and I do find those useful for certain things, but the book as a reference has been really nice. And it even smells like a math textbook. Uh-huh.
Pete, is that I take it that's the most current version that, and do they offer like any addendums going forward, the publisher?
I haven't seen any yet. This is actually published by Serif, which is the parent company.
Okay. Well, maybe they would.
Yeah, I would think, yeah, they would come out with maybe an updated version. Yeah, these are not the latest version. However, the tool sets, they came out with a tutorial for every new tool set that is a video tutorial to append that way. So yeah, no books update, but they did come out with a tutorial for each of the new tools.
Do they offer a PDF of each one of those books? Or
I don't
can you
think so.
purchase one?
I paid $50 each for these books. I'm not sure if there's an e-version of it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's an e-version of it.
But those are published by Affinity, so we can just check those out. And
oh yeah, I'm a big fan of these. And there's a lot of references inside the book. It'll say, go to this URL to download these assets to follow along. There's a lot of external references in there. So yeah.
good.
Let's do a couple more things. Oh, look, I'm getting blurry. Perfect time to there. See, hello. Yeah, no. But here, I'm just going to share my screen, so we don't even have to look at me anymore. Let's go over here. I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to do like an 8.5 by 11, a letter size file. Maybe we're making a flyer for the picnic. Here it is. Here's my 8.5 by 11 page. Remember that asset browser we talked about a minute ago? I can drag my assets onto that page, whatever assets I choose to store in there. There's a whole bunch of assets that come loaded into the software, so you can utilize many of the assets that are available. There are also many for sale on their website, which are all part of the 25% off thing that's going on right now. But there's lots of cool textures and things that you can use to create stamp masks and stuff. If we wanted this particular HP logo to appear as though it was stamped, we would then, we could grab the group and move it on here. Let me see. Here, create a mask with it and stuff. There's tons of cool things that are built right in. If you're used to a vector-based workflow, you'll be familiar with a lot of this stuff. But if you're not, a great piece of software to learn on, in my opinion. I'll just show you here one small thing before we move on to photo. But in a vector-based workflow, like here, I'm just going to do some. I'm just going to do some spheres so we can make a snowman. I'm going to make a little snowman here. And I'm just taking these shapes, and each one of these shapes is a mathematical equation, right? None of this is painted on. None of this is pixel based. So if I take the snowman here, let me just enlarge him a little bit, like a chubby snowman. These are 3 pieces that I put together here, and 3 different snowman pieces. And with a vector-based workflow, you can take these pieces and easily select them and combine them instantly with just a click of the add button. So now I've created a shape, and that shape is now something that I could even add to my asset browser if I want to. Being able to do this type of thing, and hey, maybe we want an HP logo punched out of this snowman here. I take those 2 and use the cutter to cut that logo right out of the snowman here. Let me just do this. I mean, there's so many, you have so much freedom with a vector-based workflow like this. So if I hit the minus here, I've now cut that HP logo right out of that snowman. Imagine your craft room and some of the things you could do with being able to, people have vinyl cutters nowadays. Oh, I'm not wearing a shirt that I made, but me and the family make a lot of shirts and different things with the vinyl cutter, and we press them on, and they're all designed here. I have a Glowforge, which is a laser, which will cut and engrave. I do all the designs here, and then I send them over to the Glowforge. A remarkable piece of software. Last thing I'll show you is a little bit nerdy, but in the vector-based workflow that we're in now, here, let me just change this color to red. In the vector-based workflow, everything is handled by nodes. Now, this is some inside baseball or some nerdy stuff here, but this image I just created of the snowman can be edited in ways like I can take these nodes, these Bezier curves, and edit and change them however however I see fit. There are even tools that are built in here, like new like warp groups, like a warp group that is a mesh, and I can use this mesh to deform my my form here. Amazing vector workflows that result in extraordinary exports with your PNG alpha backgrounds and transparencies, all the things that I think over the years we've all really wanted in a vector-based workflow. I found most of it right here. Let me see, convert to curves. And then what about colors? Y'all know I love me some colorful compositions. We can have gradients with multiple stops in them and change the positions of that. It's just truly remarkable the freedom you have with a vector-based workflow like this. And then whatever you create can be exported. The export options are something that I feel Affinity has done a really good job with. This is my export window here. And if I pull down, look at all of the formats available to export in Affinity. PNG, which is very popular. We grew up in the era of JPEG, or technologically, we grew up in the era of JPEG, right? We all knew JPEGs, but PNGs are current and future. They're much smaller file types, much different compression, and they support what's called an alpha channel. You can replace the word alpha with transparency to make it easier to remember. A transparency channel. JPEG cannot support transparency, so JPEG will always have a square bounding box. No JPEG can ever have a curved bounding box. Every JPEG must have 4 sharp corners, 4 90-degree corners. With being able to export in PNG format, I can choose to export just my selection here with no background, and I can export it because this is a vector-based workflow. Let's say that this was going to go on the side of a billboard, and I wanted this to be 76,000 pixels. I can type that in here and export this at 76,000 pixels because this vector-based workflow supports those mathematical equations, making it any size I want with zero loss of fidelity or resolution. Truly a remarkable piece of software. Wasn't very hard to learn, especially if you come from the world of Adobe. You can pretty much translate a lot of what you can do there to what you can do here. Some tools are remarkable. Different types of tools do different things than Adobe does. I think there are some very good competing features here that Adobe is trying to catch up with, but I do think there is the industry standard elephant in the room that makes it, there's a question mark. If you're in the professional world, you will need to consider your industry standard, which is the big one. Last thing I want to point out about the vector-based workflow, this is something Adobe can't do. Unless without huge workarounds. What Affinity has built into their software is something called personas. And this whole time we've been in Affinity Designer, and Affinity Designer has both a vector persona, but it also has a pixel persona. Because if you're in a vector-based workflow, there are some things that restrict your freedom, like being able to freely paint without those mathematical equations, or have different things that you can do with pixels that are harder to do with so many mathematical equations, like scattering tons of drops or something like that. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the blue designer persona, but right next to it is the pixel persona. Changing to that makes all my tools over here the same tools you would expect from a pixel persona. So for instance, if I take this smudge tool here, which is unheard of in a vector persona, I can begin to smudge. Let me see, strength. I can begin to smudge vector art. Some of you listening are going, well, that is remarkable because, yeah, vector art can't really be smudged. But here, let me see. Oh, yeah. So now I'm smudging the vector mathematically equated thing that I've made to my heart's desire, and then I can switch back over to the vector persona and still have the freedom to edit in the vector format. So they've done some incredible things, and if you are one who does indeed dabble in this kind of workflow, vector or pixel based workflow, I highly recommend. For the price of under $20, I think the iPad version was available, and it works with the Apple Pencil beautifully. And the integration with the Apple Pencil and the iPad is just stunning. Really good stuff there. I will open now photo. This is called Affinity Photo. But before I jump into it, while it's opening here, let me check in and see if anybody had questions or comments about what you've seen here with Affinity's pricing bundle, or the 3 apps, or Affinity Designer itself, or the vector and bitmap based workflow. Happy to discuss any of it if anybody has a question. My goodness, I'm going to turn this camera off and back on to see if
Ray has a question.
Hi, Ray. Sure.
Yeah, Pete, love the presentation so far. I love the software. I've been looking at it for about a month now, and probably will take the plunge here with the deal.
Sweet.
But I had a question. Can you import a raster-based image into Designer and have it do its best conversion to vector?
Yes, it does support raster-based images. Now, Adobe had a raster algorithm that had something like a 9-point. It was some a custom algorithm by Adobe that gives Affinity a problem if it was created with Adobe's custom algorithm. So yes, it is EPS friendly, both import and export. Here, let me go back to the export menu and show you some of the EPS options. If I'm just going to undo a few steps here and get back to our vector, and then go to the export, file export, and you will see here I've got an EPS option here and lots of options in the EPS menu, PostScript levels, and lots of things for that type of EPS encapsulated PostScript, right? EPS workflow. But there are some hiccups where I've opened a few files from Adobe's Illustrator where they use a proprietary algorithm, where I've had to go back to Adobe and re-export it without that proprietary algorithm in order to get all the fidelity that I was expecting. So I had to Google it too, because I kept opening images that were made with Adobe Illustrator, and I was just getting blocks instead of the actual vector components. And so I learned that, oh, you have to re-export it. And that's probably for like 10, maybe 15% of the images. One more thing I want to point out while you're on that question, and I think you had a follow-up. So, but this might dazzle you a little bit since you asked a fairly technical question, is I'm just going to open Microsoft's PowerPoint and I'm going to jump into a PowerPoint slide. I copy this and paste it right over into PowerPoint. And it has pasted as a vector. It does not convert to bitmap. And I have the freedom to, if this were in parts, I could break it up into parts right here in PowerPoint and use those parts here throughout PowerPoint. So I spend a lot of design time in my professional life here in Affinity Designer, and then just flipping right over to PowerPoint and pasting the things in there, or Keynote. Since I'm with this Fortune 50 company, you know, Apple is a competitor, so I don't get to use my Mac or Keynote. But for EPS, it's very friendly and handles very well, other than that little hiccup.
Yeah, I was actually going to go the other way, though. I was thinking in terms of taking a picture specifically of graphics. I build radio controlled model helicopters, and I was going to take a photograph of an image, and can I import that into Designer? Obviously, when I take a photograph, it's not going to be vector based, but then can I either use that as a template, or will Designer convert it as best it can to vector based?
Yeah, Designer is very photograph friendly. So yeah, I'll just I'll just dive in here and see if I can't find a photo that I've taken here. Let me see. Go here to Isaiah's folder. Let's see.
Yeah, specifically, I was looking to do some artwork to eventually print onto water decals for the models that I can make, you know, like scale like models with detail like
Yeah,
that.
water slide paper. I went and bought some today. That stuff is cool.
Cool.
Yeah, water slide paper is cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna find a photo here so you can see just sort of the fidelity. There are photos. Let me see what I have here. Yeah, we have this photo of Juliana. Once I imported the photo, you'll see that my icon has changed. It's basically saying, put this photo wherever you want by pulling out. So I can pull out that photo here. And then, yeah, I have this photo here on my canvas. I can lock this photo in place so I can template over it and do whatever I want there. And yes, I can export that. It won't do. Now, one thing that it won't do is trace the photo and create a vector from the bitmap. Now there are websites out there that do it for free. You just upload the photo and down comes a vector where all of the fidelity of the photo has been converted to mathematics. But this will not do it. Adobe will. It has a feature called auto trace, and you can create a bitmap, or you can take a bitmap and create a vector from it. But Affinity does not have that feature yet. That's one of the things they're not caught up with them on that. But these free websites do it, and they are just as good, if not better, because they're so much faster than Adobe on my local computer. But I hope I caught your question there and got to what you were looking for.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's been a remarkable experience working with this software. Okay, so that was the vector-based workflow. Now, many of you are Photoshop tinkerers, shutterbugs, right? People who like to edit their photos. I think you would find Affinity's photo software comparable or even better in some cases than Adobe's Photoshop. Now, come on, the industry standard is Photoshop. If you were looking for tutorials and you searched Photoshop tutorials, there would be thousands more than Affinity tutorials, right? I mean, there are some advantages to using the industry standard. I refuse to be tricked by a business in my personal life, so I avoid Adobe at all costs. But here, let's import a photo here. I'm just going to do file open, and then we'll go find a photo that we can play with a little bit. Oh, here's my dog. Let's open that one. Ah, there he is. Hey, Apollo. So yeah, I have a photo open here, and I have the suite of tools here on the left, where I can do all the things you might expect: clone brushing and dodging and burning and crop, mask, eyedropper tool. They're all here. I've got my histogram and color selector. And one of the things that just blows me away about Affinity is they've got these personas here where I can choose the liquefy persona, where I can take this and start to adjust this photo. His eyes are big enough as it is. I probably shouldn't make them any bigger, but I can adjust this photo but with a mesh and pull things. You see influencers today on Instagram shaping their bodies like this before they post to their Instagram. Oh, wow, he looks like a bodybuilder now. He's turning, well, let's turn him into a pit bull, shall we? Yeah, so
it's 11:40 p.m.
Oh, thank you, Siri. So just I can't go through pound for pound the similarities or differences between obviously Adobe's software suite and this one here. Let's make his eyes way too big. He won't be mad at me about this, will he? I don't think so. Yeah, so I have a lot of fun using the tools here, and then jumping right back into my pixel persona. All those changes I just made stuck. All the text features you would expect. from a vector or a bitmap based software like this. Here, this one is bitmap. So let's just bring this text over here. It is vector until you lock it in. So it's nice that you get all these editing capabilities. You can change, obviously, you know, pretty much anything you want about the text. Let's make it
Pete, can you extract them from the background?
Yeah, oh, sure. Yeah, there's lots of masking and you know, tools to. Let's see. I don't know if I can just do that on the fly. It's been a while since I've used this for that. Let me see. Will this? Let's see. Oh, there's flood select, and I'm going to bring the tolerance down a little bit. Try that again. He might be tough to get. There's a lot of blur and noise, but who knows? Let's see. That's too low. Let's say 10%. And then you can refine, you know, once you try the auto. Adobe is really working hard on bringing AI into their workflow and stuff. So I think they're quite focused on that. But yeah, here are ways, just like Adobe, you can not only automatically flood select your background, but then use masks like this one to go through and refine the mask and continue to add or subtract at the pixel level. So yes, it has all of the features that you would expect to find in an industry standard, you know, sort of piece of software like this, but just a bit different than Adobe. And they're scrappy and young, this company. They want to take on Adobe, but as an industry standard, what's the saying? 800-pound gorilla. They're not going to go easily. Here, I want to launch Publisher. We don't have too much time. I'm going to launch Publisher just for a quick peek at some of the available features there. Publisher has, oh, and another thing I should have pointed out from the beginning. Sorry, every app has a series of sample files that ship with the app that you can use to learn the app. Let me see. Go here to splash screen and get those. Each time it opens, now I turn this off because I've used it so much. I turn this feature off, but each time you open it, each time you open Affinity, you get this window. Oh, here we go. You get this window here. It's sort of like a dashboard. And this dashboard shows your current account status, and it shows what add-ons you might have purchased. Again, folks, I was so eager to support this company that I went and purchased all of the add-ons they had. And so I've got them all. I didn't spend that much. I mean, there were probably $3 or $4 each, some of them, you know, but I really wanted them to hear loud and clear that I'm here to support them. But the samples, here's the samples menu. There's one in all three. There's one in photo, there's one in designer, and there's one in publisher here. And these samples are great to open up and sort of reverse engineer, right? Take a look at how they did their workflow and what different things they've done to make their books and things look the way they do. Excuse me. But you can see here some beautiful, elegant layouts that are, these things are done parametrically. One thing I love about Serif's Affinity bundle as opposed to Adobe's is you can tell the software, you can say, never allow the graphics to get any closer than 25% to the edge, no matter what I do. Never allow this graphic to get any closer to the text than this. You can put in these parameters and do parametric design where you've set rules. You've said there must always be a 1/2-inch border. The logo, my company logo, must never be in proximity of other imagery. You know, there are huge brand books that these companies have with a lot of restrictions about how you can and can't use their logo. I'm constantly having to reference those as I publish partnerships with like AMD and Intel and NVIDIA, all these big tech companies. I worked with Google here recently, where they have very strict rules about where things can and can't go. And I can enter those rules into the software and make it so we never stumble into those things. It's called parametric design. But you can see some of the gorgeous layouts and stuff you're capable of with the publisher software. And it's all familiar. You can see all the applications are set up exactly the same. I think they took that cue from Apple back in the iWork days. But when I open Adobe Illustrator, or I open Adobe Photoshop, or I open Adobe InDesign, it's three very different interfaces and everything's in different spots. The last thing I want to point out about Adobe Publisher, or I'm sorry, about Affinity Publisher, is that in the upper left-hand corner, we are in their publishing software now. And the publishing software is different than the design, which is different than the photo software. But what Affinity allows you to do is access the other two right from the upper left-hand corner. You can click to get into Designer in case you want to do some vector graphics in your publication. And you can click into the photo persona in case you want to edit up this photo at the photo level. And so the freedom to have all three apps in the suite are in the upper left-hand corner with Publisher, so you can easily get out to photo when you need it to enhance your photo and jump right back in, or get out to Designer when you need it, do your edits and jump right back in. Publisher is not available on iOS. So iPad OS does not have Publisher. If you go to the App Store right now, you'll see Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo for the iPad, but not Publisher. For some reason, they haven't released it on the iPad. I don't know if they have plans to. I think it's the least used software in the bundle. And the people who know it and need it, know it and need it. But people like me, I've only launched this a handful of times to do projects. With that, I want to be mindful of the time. I'm glad we got to take a tour through that. I'm glad we got to look at the pricing. I'm glad we got to talk about the world of competition between huge companies like Adobe and smaller scrappy companies like Serif's Affinity Bundle here. I highly encourage you to get the iPad version and play with it a little bit. There's some tutorials online that I took at first just to get familiar with the software, and had a great time learning it myself. There's the books that you can purchase, but I do believe that it is important, at least for me. I'm not preaching to you, but at least for me, it's important to send messages to these companies so we stop getting tricked. There was a whole era there where so many of you were tricked by Intuit, which makes Quicken, right? They did a lot of swapping on you and took a lot of your money because they knew they had you hostage because your bank accounts were in their software. This kind of thing left a really bad taste in my mouth as we entered the software subscription era and all this stuff, where I believe you should make a statement when you get tricked by a business, and you should say, never again will I do business with you, and I'm going to go find smaller, scrappy alternatives to support them and help them compete with the likes of you. Because I don't know, companies like that have proven to me time and time again that my experience doesn't matter, that they'll do business on their terms and only their terms. And that's when I make my exit. I'm out of there. So that's the overview of Serif's Affinity Bundle. There is a sale right now. I highly recommend that bundle if you are somebody who dabbles in this type of thing. If you're not, thank you for sitting through all that. It's probably somewhat informative, but not too relevant if you don't mess with this stuff. And yeah, let's do a little bit of Q&A. I know you guys have a raffle and things to do here, and I'll take my leave and let you do that here after a couple.
Bev has a question.
Yeah, please. Let's get. Hi, Bev.
No, I could ask you to do the numbers also.
I'll probably let somebody else handle that, because over here on the East Coast, it is
okay.
All right.
My question is, it's a one-time fee, but when we go into different operating systems, I mean, Apple is looking around to make sure they stay compatible. I don't know how different applications stay compatible or don't. Obviously, I mean, like things went from 32-bit to 64-bit, but I mean, how can it be? It seems like you need when operating one thing changes, something else would have to change.
Yeah, they are on top of it. I don't know if you guys caught it, but when I launched the software, and now I've used it this week, but when I launched it, there was an update, because they're updating constantly. This young scrappy company is on top of it. There's probably 3 updates a month, and it's very easy. When you launch it, it says, hey, there's a new update. Would you like to update? And you just click yes. So I don't know. They've proven themselves to me I've never had I've never had the software not launch because it wasn't ready. And to answer your sort of, you sort of had a question between the lines there, which is, well, how do they know what the updates are going to do? They're signed up for the developer program. Apple gives them like, for instance, they already have the next iOS. They have iOS 17 now, and they're coding for it right now. Even though it doesn't come out until September or October this year, they're already writing the code for it. So when it comes out, your experience will be seamless. Other companies sit around and don't want to spend that money and don't want to chase those updates, and so you have to wait for updates and things like that. Those are the companies I would abandon. But ones like this, I've had an incredible experience with them staying abreast of all the latest updates. And I'm not talking about just basic things. They take full advantage of the Apple Pencil. Every time Apple builds a new feature into this pencil, you see those features implemented into the software. Truly remarkable company. They've impressed me, and their pricing is just so fair right now. I don't know what happens, in the future. Do these companies get so big that
It
now
seems unsustainable. It's like a giant, you have to keep having people come in order to add more and more.
Oh, yeah. And you know where they're coming from. Adobe is chasing them out, and they're coming in. So their popularity has skyrocketed in the past, I'd say 18 months. Affinity has really done a great job of staying on top of it and becoming an industry standard. Another one that's shaking up or disrupting the space is like, look at Shaper 3D. Now, nobody probably uses that. It's 3D, like almost like CAD software, but AutoCAD by Autodesk used to be the standard, and everybody would use that. The software was slow, it was clunky, it was difficult to use, the interface was horrible. And then this scrappy company called Shaper 3D came along and disrupted the whole space and said, we're doing this on mobile, we're doing this with the Apple Pencil, we're doing things that old school CAD designers never would have dreamed of, but we're here to do it. And I love these smaller companies like Shaper 3D or Serif with their Affinity bundle, shaking things up and taking on the big ones. And I think I couldn't tell you if their business model is working or whatever, but just as a customer, I'm absolutely delighted and looking forward to whatever's next. I really want to support those underdogs.
This is Don.
Hey, Don. Yeah.
I just bought Affinity. I used to be.
I'm cheering not because it benefits me, but I want to see this scrappy young company do well. So I like when people buy in. I think they deserve your business.
Yeah, 20 years ago, I used to use Smart Paint because it had vector and bitmap. I don't know if people knew this, but the lunar landing module was designed with Smart Paint.
Amazing.
I haven't found anything like that in the last 20 years. And I refuse to use Illustrator because of being Adobe and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So
enjoy it and email me, Don, if you get stuck or you want to show me something you did or you want to see something I did. Let's talk about it. I'm happy to be your Affinity bundle buddy, and let's have some fun with it.
I'm in too.
Okay.
Maps and drawing curves, basically with individual lines on the bitmap was terrible.
Yeah, but here you got Bezier curves. They're adjustable. They're adjustable the whole time, even if you're done with your thing and you want to move something. It's just really incredible what they can do. PeteLozzi@gmail.com. That's my email address. I try to share it every time we're here. You're happy to drop it in chat. But PeteLozzi@gmail. It's no spaces or anything. PeteLozzi @gmail.com. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You and I have emailed before. Please reach out. I don't miss an email, and I'm always delighted to participate and support wherever I can. So, yeah. Well, is it raffle time?
It is.
Okay, let me drop my email in the chat. It says PeteLozzi@gmail.com. There we go. And
Mary showed up. Hey, Mary.
Yeah. All right. Well, looking forward to seeing you. It's Saturday. I think I'm on for the first Saturday workshop. Any votes? Any votes on what you'd like to hear about? I know Bob's going to be looking for some copy from me. What do we want to talk about on that first Saturday workshop?
Oh, give me some copy tomorrow or the next day, please.
Okay.
How about something on shortcuts?
Yes. All right. Done. Shortcuts.
What else was that?
Okay, shortcuts and freeform.
Yeah.
I got it written down. Be there, be square. Shortcuts and freeform. Saturday the 5th, right?
there's so much stuff and
Yeah.
shortcuts that I think everyone
yeah.
can appreciate that in any program that they're using. You know, we all need to understand how they work, how to generate them. And
Yeah, so I'm gonna diagram that one out with some nodes and stuff.
oh,
So-
wonderful.
as
That's
well.
great.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I'll see you then. Thank you very much for having me. It is always my pleasure to be here. One of my favorite groups that I get to hang out with. You always ask the best questions, and you don't let me get away with much, which I love. Keep me on my toes. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna head to bed because I'm in Georgia and it's almost midnight. But it was my pleasure seeing you. And Saturday the 5th, be there or be square. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
Thank
Pete.
Thanks,
Bye
Pete.
bye.
Thank you.
All right, am I gonna be stuck with Siri? Oh my God. Or did we have a volunteer instead of me having to belabor and be embarrassed?
I believe you volunteered.
Bob.
What?
We
Lisa
volunteered
volunteered
Bob.
me.
Okay, I thought we had, but you seemed reticent and I didn't want to get in any trouble being the original innocent
I don't-
virgin.
I don't guarantee perfection, but we'll give it a try.
Well, you've seen what has happened to me before.
Oh, what's your numbers, Lisa?
For those in attendance today, we have 31,
So 0 to 31
1 to 31.
or 1 to 31?
Right.
Whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. Got my list ready.
Siri, please give me a random number between 1 and 31.
It's 27.
You hear that? It's 27?
I did. 27 is Ray Bolke.
Way to go, Ray.
These are the $25 gift certificates right now.
Thank you. I just got Affinity that much cheaper.
There you go.
Woohoo.
Instant discount.
Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 31.
The answer is 13.
13.
And 13 is Donna Olafson.
Siri, give me another random number between 1 and 31.
It's 7.
7.
7 is Charlene Parsons.
She's still here?
Charlene, yeah.
I think so.
Yep, she's in the
Yeah.
See
screen,
her up.
She's just off
in the
screen.
gallery view.
She may be
Yeah, she may be listening from afar in the
celebrating,
room.
so.
Oh, yeah, I see her. Down there underneath Vic. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, one more $25 gift card.
Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 31.
That would be 18.
18.
18, Joellen Arnold.
Hey, Joellen. Hey, hey.
Yay, thank you.
On to the $100 gift cards, however that came out.
We're still doing
31, yeah.
31. Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 31. I guess it would help if I make her live. Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 31.
It's 21.
21.
Chris Dodson.
Hey, Chris. Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Yay,
Oh.
thank you very much.
Final draw.
Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 31.
It's 19.
19.
19. John Hart.
Hey, John.
Okay, now we have the all members, and that is a total of, as she scrolls hurriedly, she tries, 276, and it is a $100 gift certificate.
Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 276.
It's 191.
191.
91 is
191.
191 is Ray Chung. Good. I won't have to put out a "this is not a scam" email. That's it. Congrats to the winners.
Woohoo.
Yeah,
Hey,
good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting.
You were out of the room. Your name.
Did I miss much at the beginning there, Bob?
Well,
J-
Did we record it?
yeah, it's
we
recorded.
recorded it. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
And
that
I'll-
reminds me,
I'll have to turn it
Mr.
off.
Thomas needs to take care of that part of it.
Yeah, I'll turn it off. Yes.
But,
I'll speed watch it and see if I can throw in
Yeah.
some links on what I missed.
Spent a long time talking about answer the question on whether you should update
All
your
right,
OS.
correct.
And it's very good. It's very interesting.
Whether we should update what? The latest
Your
updates?
Mac OS as
Mm.
updates come out.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I can remember that was a question that was asked and that was put in the email.
How's mom doing?
She's got some challenges. They've got her she had a stent put in, several of them 3 years ago, and she's having some balance issues and her heart kind of races kind of intermittently, and so it's kind of pretty disruptive to what her normal things that she does and stuff. And so she went in a couple of times in the last week, and they finally strapped. They couldn't find anything. Her blood sugar was good. Her EKG was fine, but they got her strapped into a little Bluetooth heart monitor for the next month. So see if they can capture the events and make some diagnostic headway. She just celebrated her 88th birthday the other day. Unfortunately, she spent it in the ER. She wasn't too happy about that, but life goes on. She's still, she faces it with grace, and she's I always say she's a role model for how to age gracefully. So my mom, she's a kick.
Good.
She's hanging in there. Can't wait to get out there and go for a walk, go for a hike.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. All righty. I'll speed watch the beginning of the meeting and see if there's any links that I can go research
Yeah,
real quick.
there weren't many links put in.
No,
You might be able to add some.
Yeah. I'll find some obscure stuff that might be pertinent to what
Yeah.
where the conversation goes, and see if we can put it together for our normal PDF.
See you later.
all right. Thanks for
All righty.
coming.
And thanks,
Everyone-
Lisa, for doing the whole thing today.
Not a problem, Mary. Take care. Hope
Good
you
job,
have a good birthday.
Thomas.
Oh, thank you.
Good job, Thomas.
Now, Bob, we got a chat, please. Okay, for
Let it out.
coming up Saturday, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm gonna open it up a little before 9 and make you the host, and then you'll have all power. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm gonna leave it open
Throughout.
between noon and 1:00. So,
Right. Now go ahead and you'll need to stop the recording.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, I just thought of that for myself. I'm like,
yeah. no,
okay, all right.
Around noon, I'll stop the recording, but I'll leave the session open.
All right, cool. All right, that's the way I see it. So anything else or?
Not that I can think of.
All righty. Well, I will see you then and I will be checking the email.
Already.
All right, have a good evening. Thanks a
good night.
lot. Yeah, you too. Ciao, ciao. Okay, don't forget to stop the record.